For much of the modern era, universities have been built around two powerful traditions. One tradition emphasizes specialized knowledge, the idea that education should prepare students with deep expertise in specific disciplines. The other emphasizes broad intellectual development, the belief that education should cultivate critical thinking, curiosity, and the ability to engage with complex ideas across many domains. In recent decades, these two traditions have increasingly been placed in tension. Students are often told that education should be practical, focused, career oriented, and particularly in STEM fields, the pressure to specialize early has grown stronger. But some educators argue that narrowing education too early may limit the very intellectual flexibility that modern societies need most, which raises an interesting question. In a world increasingly shaped by science and technology, what role does a liberal education still play? Welcome back to the EdTech Curio Cabinet. Hello again, I'm Christina, the Curio Steward. This season of the EdTech Curio Cabinet is exploring how education systems around the world shape the way students learn. In previous episodes, we examined global mathematics performance, examination cultures, and the different ways societies design engineering education pathways. Those curios revealed how systems organize knowledge. But today's curiosity explores a deeper question. What is education ultimately for? Is it primarily about professional preparation? Or is it about cultivating intellectual habits that allow people to navigate a complex and changing world? As always, we'll explore this curiosity through four lenses: the artifact, the pattern, the paradox, and finally the signal. The concept of a liberal education dates back centuries. The term originally referred to the liberal arts, the disciplines considered essential for developing free, thoughtful, and engaging citizens. These included areas such as rhetoric, logic, mathematics, and philosophy. The goal was not simply the acquisition of knowledge, but the cultivation of judgment, the ability to reason, to communicate, and to engage with complex ideas. Modern universities have inherited many of these traditions. Even institutions that are heavily focused on science and engineering often include requirements for broader study in the humanities and social sciences, an acknowledgement that technical expertise alone is not sufficient for navigating the world. In his book, In Defense of a Liberal Education, Zakaria argues that this kind of education plays a critical role in developing the intellectual habits needed for an unpredictable future. Education, in his view, should not simply prepare students for their first job. It should prepare them for careers and lives that may evolve in ways that we cannot fully anticipate. And this idea resonates deeply with me. In my work with Nordic education systems, I've seen a similar philosophy take shape, not necessarily framed as liberal education, but expressed through practice. There's a noticeable emphasis on developing the whole learner, on encouraging curiosity, reflection, and intellectual exploration alongside technical skill. And there is a quiet confidence in the idea that breadth is not a distraction from expertise, but a foundation for it. If we look across history, many of the most impactful scientific and technological breakthroughs have come from individuals who combine deep expertise with broad intellectual curiosity. They didn't operate within a single domain, they moved between them. Engineers borrowing from biology, physicists influenced by philosophy, technologists shaped by the understanding of human behavior. Innovation often emerges at these intersections. This pattern connects closely to something we explored in the previous episode, the engineering pipeline. Engineering programs, particularly in North America, often wrestle with a familiar tension: how to maintain technical depth while also fostering broader intellectual capabilities. And yet, many employers increasingly emphasize skills that are outside the traditional technical training: communication, collaboration, systems thinking, the ability to frame problems, not just solve them. In other words, the very capacities historically associated with liberal education remain deeply relevant, perhaps especially within technical fields. From what I've observed in Nordic systems, the integration often feels more natural. There is less friction between technical and non-technical learning, less sense that one must come at the expense of the other. Instead, There's a recognition that understanding social, ethical, and human contexts enhances the ability to apply technical knowledge effectively. Modern economies tend to reward specialization. Students are encouraged to develop deep expertise in specific areas to become highly skilled in clearly defined domains. And in many ways, this makes sense. Complex problems require deep knowledge. Expertise matters. But at the same time, the pace of technological change is accelerating. Fields evolve, tools change, entire domains emerge and transform within the span of a single career, which creates the paradox. The more specialized a field becomes, the more valuable adaptability becomes as well. Students who can learn new concepts quickly, evaluate unfamiliar ideas, and connect knowledge across domains may ultimately be better prepared for long-term success than those whose expertise is narrowly fixed. In those capacities, adaptability, curiosity, intellectual flexibility are often cultivated through breadth, not just depth. This is where the liberal education tradition re-enters the conversation, not as an alternative to specialization, but as a complement to it. Across many universities, we are beginning to see renewed interest in integrating liberal education principles with technical training. Engineering and science programs are increasingly incorporating elements like ethics and responsible innovation, public policy and societal impact, interdisciplinary project work. Students are being asked not only to build systems, but to consider the consequences of those systems. They're not only being asked to solve problems, but to understand which problems are worth solving. This signal suggests that the future of STEM education may not be about choosing between two traditions, but about blending them. Technical expertise, grounded in rigorous knowledge, and broad intellectual curiosity, grounded in exploration and reflection. Again, this is where my own experience aligns closely with what Zakaria describes. Working with Nordic institutions, there is a clear openness to this blending, a willingness to engage with emerging research, to rethink traditional boundaries between disciplines, to collaborate, not just within institutions, but across them. It's an approach I've come to deeply appreciate, not because it replaces rigor, but because it reframes what rigor means. Education systems reflect assumptions about the future. If we assume the world will remain stable, that professions will remain largely unchanged, then specialization alone may seem sufficient. But if we assume the world will continue to evolve rapidly, that careers will shift, technologies will change, and new challenges will emerge, then intellectual adaptability becomes essential. The debate around liberal education, then, is not just about curriculum design. It's about how we prepare people for uncertainty. Do we prepare them to know, or do we prepare them to learn? And perhaps more importantly, do we prepare them to think? Education technology evolves quickly. New tools, new capabilities, new ways of learning, arriving all the time. But the deeper patterns, how we build understanding, how we connect ideas, how we prepare for the unknown, those change much more slowly. That's why we keep the cabinet open. Thanks for exploring the EdTech Curio Cabinet.